I'm Hillary Hendershot, your host, and this is Profit Boss Radio, episode 122. Profit Boss Radio is your weekly wealth mastermind. Profit Boss is also a community and a movement for women who are ready to take control of their money, break the glass ceiling, and give ourselves permission to finally have enough. Want the secrets of wealth to be yours? This is the place. I'm Hillary Hendershot. I'm a certified financial planner running a leading advisory firm for women, and I'm sharing with you real stories from real life and real women who are making it happen. Forget Wall Street. Let's do this, ladies. Hey there, Profit Boss. I have a special interview for you today. Today, we're here with Leslie, who was a part of my 50K Wealth Multiplier Experience coaching program this year. And Leslie completely blew us away. If you could see where this woman started and where she finished, it's an utter transformation of how she thinks about money, her results about money, how much money she has, how she spends, how she manages, and really how she manages her life. And that'll all come clear as we move through the interview. I want to be clear, just so you know, I'm a financial advisor, and we financial advisors are not allowed to publish testimonials for our investments advice or investment work, okay? So Leslie is talking about work that we did with her on her money mindset, how she manages her cash flow. So nothing that Leslie is talking about has anything to do with my investment services, okay? So that's a bit of a disclaimer there. So she is talking about the program that I coached her through, and she is talking about her past with money and what she heard and what she got that altered that. And again, nothing having anything to do with investments. And, you know, Leslie's a very special lady. Some of you know that my daughter Harlan is sick now, and it's been kind of a turning of the tables. She's been really supportive of me, and I'm forever changed from knowing her. So I'm honored to feature her on Profit Boss Radio today. If you would like to put your name on the interest list for the next time we offer the 50K Wealth Multiplier Experience, we are taking names. And you can find that link in today's show notes at hillaryhendershot.com/122. It's just the number, the website for the coaching program is 50kwealthmultiplier.com. If you want to go directly there, it's not my homepage. It's 50, the number 50, wealthmultiplier.com. So just to be easy, go to hillaryhendershot.com/122. Please enjoy this amazing interview with Leslie. So Leslie, I want you to know how excited I've been about this interview. And I just want you to know how many women are going to be really impacted by what you're about to share. Okay. So I consider you a rock star. So thanks for coming on Profit Boss Radio.
I'm excited to be here.
So take us back to way before I met you. You were a wife, you were a mother, but your marriage was not destined to last. Talk a little bit about the dynamic you see was present that had that go that way, and what were you doing about money, and just talk a little bit about the background there.
When I had my children, I stopped working and decided that I wanted to be at home with them. And my husband and I both agreed that that's what we wanted to do. And so,
what were you doing for work before that?
I was a sales rep for a pharmaceutical company.
Okay.
And doing well. Then one of my children has hemophilia, and I felt really compelled to be at home once he was a little guy. So that was part of the decision. And then I worked a lot as a volunteer in the schools, etc. But my marriage started to not go well, and I didn't feel very powerful to do anything about it because I wasn't making any money. But I decided before we chose to separate that I was going to...
You mean that you were afraid to separate because you would have to rely on him for income?
I was relying on him for income, and I didn't quite have a grasp on where we were financially. I was we divided and conquered. And instead, in hindsight, I wish I would have understood more about what was going on with our money. But I was focused on what I was focused on, and he was focused on what he was focused on. And it didn't occur to me until I got a job working as a realtor, until I got my real estate license and chose I wanted to be a realtor, that was even a choice. And all of a sudden, when I started earning, I became aware of how I might have some power to change something.
So you became, do you say realtor or real estate agent? Is it the same?
Either one.
Okay. You became a realtor while you were still married.
Yes.
Okay. And why did you choose realtor? Did you have any idea what kind of income was possible, or was it just something that was a natural segue into sales?
Yes, it was more of a natural segue. I was at a neighborhood party. One of the neighbors was a manager at a real estate company and brokerage, and I just got this passion and excitement about doing that. And so I immediately went and got my real estate license and jumped right in. And it was in 2009, which was probably not the ideal time to get into real estate, but
yeah,
I felt compelled.
The nation was in recovery from the housing crisis in 2009. Wow. So your husband, do you think he was threatened by you making money, or did that change the dynamic of your relationship?
No, he was very supportive and very encouraging as I went into that.
Okay. And so what do you think were the dynamics that had the marriage be off kilter? What, if you had to give a synopsis of why the two of you didn't last as a couple, what was that?
It was probably a combination of things. We got married probably too fast, and there was some dynamics that were unhealthy that didn't have to do with money, but then money became a big part of all those things that were unhealthy, and it sort of sprung from there. And I never really thought, the way I was raised and who I was as a person, I never considered divorce as an option.
Uh-huh.
And I got to a point where I felt like I needed to change course for my own survival emotionally and financially.
And so I only want to know the briefest summary of, you say there were issues in the marriage that didn't have to involve money, but it became about money, and then it sort of the money issues sort of took off. Was it he didn't want to share or didn't want to talk openly, or you couldn't decide what to do with it, or high level?
I think we just had a dynamic where he was taking care of certain things and had a commitment to what our family structure would look like. And I was not aware, if you will, to see that it was crumbling to the point where I needed to go back to work earlier. And he was trying to make it all happen on his own, nobly, but it wasn't working. And so we got into some very stressful situations where we couldn't meet our monthly obligations and had to borrow, and it went down from there. And when you're in that state, he was on an all commission, and try as he might, we just were in a financial demise.
All commission. And were you renting your home at that time, or did you own?
We owned and we sold, but we were not yet at a place where we got equity out of it.
Right. So, and this is a story I hear so often out of Silicon Valley and these places where the cost of living is so high as these couples get together and everybody's well-meaning, but it's like a sprint to make to make the kind of money that you need to make to live here. And if you're not making it, it's not okay to say, I'm not making it, and make other arrangements, right? Socially, we sort of go to the mat pretending that we're making it, throwing good money after bad, and in some cases bankrupting ourselves, costing ourselves our FICO scores, et cetera, et cetera. I've heard the story so many times. So then what came to a head? I know you said you filed for divorce eventually. Tell me about that time.
I just over a period of months there, I just came to the realization that I had a choice as a woman of what I wanted to do with my life and my children and how I wanted to be a mom for them. And that did not include staying married to my ex-husband. So it was time to make that change. It was a scary, scary, scary time. I was very early stages of real estate, all commission, and it takes a couple of years just to get your feet wet. So I was walking into a very bleak situation, yet I still felt an incredible amount of conviction that it was time. And we were at that time, he was very stressed as well, and finances were really hard for him, and it was hard on both of us. So we came to a point where somebody close to us said, you guys are going to have to live rent-free for X amount of years, 3 or 4 years, before you're even going to be at zero. And I remember sitting, I know exactly where I was sitting at our kitchen table, and I thought, well, how on earth is that possible with 3 children in a school district where I don't want to mess up their world? And, my ex-husband was great about that too. We both knew we were in a hard place, and it was hard on both of us, and we were kind of in that together. But I just literally pulled from within the deepest part of me, and I just said, okay, got to do what I got to do.
I got to do what I got to do.
So at that point in time, neither of us had any money. He was able to stay somewhere. I took my 3 kids and moved in with my mom and dad out of the school district, which was really hard. And I went to the superintendent and asked permission to stay in our school district. They do have detectives that will follow people home because it's a great school district, and some people fudge a little to get in the school district. Didn't want that to happen. Wanted to be all out front. So I got permission from January to August to be out of the district. So we commuted 30 minutes every day, which is really hard before and after school with after school sports, and lived with my parents. And I figured out I was, we shared debt from our divorce, not any income or any assets whatsoever. We sold our house, but it broke even, and we had to dig out of some things, and we each took our share.
So when you say you needed 3 to 4 years of rent-free living to be at zero, there was obviously debt.
And
so, but you said the house about broke even. So was it credit card debt?
We had a lot of credit card debt, and there was some debt to personal individuals.
Like personal loans.
Mm-hmm. And so we divided up.
You're just living a lifestyle you couldn't afford. That was the basic problem, is the lifestyle was going on the credit cards with no conversation for how are we actually going to pay this.
Yes, and I think we just had we had an ideal in our mind, and we weren't living up to it, and we didn't even really talk about how to solve that because there was other things that weren't healthy in the marriage.
It was just not top of mind. It wasn't the most important.
We were surviving somehow. And as women, I think sometimes we trust and we just, okay, you do that and I'll do this. You take care of earning and I will pay the groceries and these bills and you pay for those bills. If I could go back to talk to my younger self, I would say know everything about everything all the time. And then you can delegate or divide up who's doing what, but both of you need to know everything about everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I didn't know about taxes. I didn't know. I just signed. I didn't know anything. I just let that be taken care of for me. And so a lot of my state was due to my own lack of awareness and lack of educating myself on what I need to know in my marriage about finances and all that. So that was a big hit. We were in debt, and I was making all commission as a brand new realtor in 2009.
And so in 2009, and did you realize the full extent of the debt before you filed for divorce, or when was it that you really realized how much there was?
I did before we filed for divorce. And we amicably divided that up.
Okay. So you looked at it and said, well, technically you spent this, but I get that half of it's mine, so I'll take half.
Yes. It was one of those things where you could spend a lot of time blaming how we got there, but at the end of the day, this is our situation, so let's just deal with it.
Yeah.
And by the law, we're married, and that's what we do. So I felt like we didn't have a lawyer for our divorce. We tried to be really fair with each other, and that was our choice. Some people may not agree, but it worked out well for the two of us based on how we moved forward, and I don't have any regrets.
Okay. So now talk to me about how you managed life and money in between when you moved out on your own or moved in with your parents and the time you and I met. Because when you and I met, you had a huge, big, compelling story about yourself and money and your kids and right. So just talk to me a little bit about how that time period went and how you managed yourself and spending and earning.
My story with money, one of my low points was when my Toyota Sequoia got impounded at the Safeway as we were coming out, my littlest one and me, and she was probably 10 at the time. And her books from having responsibility of whatever teddy bear in the classroom was in the car. And we just watched the car being cranked up on that tow truck. And I ran up and I said, "Hang on, what are you doing?" And he said, "Get away from the car, ma'am." And I said, "My little girl's books are in there." And she's starting to cry and "Step away from the car, ma'am." And I said, "You can't just take my car." He goes, "Step away from the car." It was ruthless. And she was standing there with her little chicken fingers from Safeway. And we had all these bags of groceries. And I just remember she was like, "Mommy, how do we get my books out?" I said, "We're not going to get our books out." So we schlumped down the post by where the shopping carts are. And I just remember looking at her and we just looked at each other kind of like, what are we going to do now? And I felt shame. I felt defeated. I felt just, oh my gosh, my little girl. We're at a very public place where I'm well known in the community. And it was...
Did anyone say anything?
Nobody said anything, but then the two of us held hands, we got up and we started walking home. And as we were walking home, probably 5 people pulled over and asked us if we wanted a ride. And that we know. And I said, "No, thanks, we're up for a walk today." And I was just choking back the tears. And I just remember that little kid we just walked home. And that was a really big eye-opening experience for me about just the depths of it and who was being impacted by our situation, my kids. So that really gave me the grit to change, and I had to make some sacrifices to do so. And I remember when we lived with my parents, they provided our food, and I had a good car, and I had nice clothes, but I was pretty much looking for a 20 in the gutter like anybody else that would be in a really horrible place. And feeling like Kelly and I would go to the grocery store with $100 cash and we would figure out how we got through for the week. And she was in it with me. She would get excited about what we could sacrifice and what we couldn't. And she was my frugal little pal in the whole situation. And I'll just never forget how in such a crummy time she was such an inspiration as we, checked out and high-fived each other that we had 40 cents left or whatever it was. But
so she's literally helping you look for sale prices, and you're doing meal planning.
We could make that. We don't need to buy that. We could make that for cheaper.
Wow. It's actually a great lesson.
Yeah. So so it was a hard time. But we all got through it. We just got through it. You just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you just deal.
So how much money did you make as a real estate agent in 2009?
Not much. I can't even remember, but not much. And I probably sold 2 houses.
Okay.
Or something like that.
Maybe
so
$60,000?
Something like that. And I was at Okay. When you start out in real estate, the brokerage gets a much bigger split than you do. So what you make is less even. And we have E&O insurance and desk fees. And it just felt like it went out as fast as it came in.
Okay. So 2009, 2010. And did your income grow kind of linearly in each of those years?
It did.
And at some point you took on additional expenses because you're now renting a really nice home. So talk a little bit about how you...
Well, that 3 or 4 years of living rent-free didn't stop after I lived with my parents. So we had to be back in the school district in the next August, and we still didn't have a place to live. And I wasn't able to do rent. And I had a commitment to myself being on commission that I needed 6 months of rent before I'd sign a lease so that my kids would have stability. So I have a good friend who's a developer who had a house that was being torn down. They had let their tenants go, but they had some holdups with the city that she thought might take a while, but not long enough that she could get a new tenant. So she said, why don't you live here for free? It's kind of gross. It's a tear down, but you could be there for free. And I had so much shame at that time. I just didn't want to be needy or a victim, or I had such a strong, strong community circling around me all the time in so many ways of support. But it was so hard for me to accept it. And another friend said, this would be when you say yes. So we lived there for a year. And when she was ready to break ground, we were just shy of that school year ending in March. And I thought, I wonder if we can get back to my parents just for the summer. And then some dear friends said, oh, no, you're not going to leave the school district. Come live with us in our guest house. They have a beautiful house, big house in a really nice area. And they said we could stay in their guest house. So we lived there for a year.
You and your 3 kids?
Rent-free.
How many bedrooms?
There was 1 bedroom, 1 bath, and it was beautiful, but not for a family of 4 to live there full time. So tiny kitchen, but beautiful kitchen. But it was more for a weekend kind of thing. But we had every countertop and surface covered. One of my kids was on the couch, one was on an airbed, and the other slept with me. And we did that for a year. And that was in junior year of high school for one of them, where it's the hardest year with getting ready for college stuff. And middle school.
And other high school students.
7th grade boy where he had to live behind a classmate in a really nice house. A lot of stuff that my kids had to carry emotionally. And it was hard. It was hard because I didn't want that for them, but I was driven to get us out of the situation. So we just kept fighting forward together.
And were you paying the credit card debt at this time?
Yeah, I actually went so crazy paying debt off and negotiating with credit card companies on how to get that down without it looking bad on my credit card. So I had to settle some things and got it reduced. How
much debt did you start with?
I think it was in excess of $300,000
of credit card debt.
Yes.
And that was half? So there was $600,000 total?
Yes, it was a lot.
Wow.
Between the government and...
so there was IRS debt.
There was IRS debt, there was credit card debt, and there was personal loans. And I'm guessing that it was about 300. It's a little fuzzy now, but it's right about that.
And so you're just paying and paying.
I actually paid off so fast that I actually got myself a little bit into more of hot water. If I would have paid it off a little bit slower, I could have done things, maybe not been back to square one so quickly, but I just wanted that.
What do you mean?
Well, I just paid off chunks, so I still had no income basically. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I would have carried
so you were paying off debt instead of paying for living expenses, and then you ended up having to borrow for living expenses. Right.
So
looks like I just want to keep borrowing.
Yeah, there's a little thing there that I'll talk about later, how I learned my relationship with money.
Okay, so that was high school.
Yes.
And so now your kids are in college.
Yes. So we lived in that situation, and then I was at a point where I had rent in reserve, mm-hmm. and I got to a place where I could rent my own house, and my community of friends helped me find something that was under market, and I got it, and my credit score and all those reports that you have to give to the landlord were horrible.
Horrible.
And I said, I'm a realtor. You could get more rent than you're asking from me, just so you know, but I can't pay that. And then I remember my hardwood floor guy, I wanted the floors done because she had carpet and I have allergies. And he said, if this is for Leslie, I would do anything for her. So I'll give you a great deal on the floors. So my community of support, work-wise, as well as friends, This landlord totally took a chance on me and gave us a home. And then we have moved 2 more times since then.
What does it feel like to accept that kind of help?
Really, really hard. So I had to go to probably months of therapy on what receiving is, because I had so much shame about where I was financially and so much loving help at the same time. It was just more than I could take. So I had to learn that giving and receiving is a horizontal situation, not a vertical situation where I'm the worm and the other person's the hero, but more
that you're actually doing something for the giver by being a receiver.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I had to learn that over and over again. And I had a friend say, I'm praying for you, Leslie. And when I pray for you, I see a pearl and whatever that means, or an oyster. And I was like, whatever that means, I don't care. I'll take anything. So maybe 6 months later, I was looking in a card store for my son's graduation. I came across this card that said, tired of being an oyster, she decided to be a pearl for a change. I'm like, oh, oyster. So I looked at the card closer and it said, being counted worthy to receive. And I remember just sitting there bawling in this card store. And the next little typed line, super tiny, said, an extraordinary life. And I just remember, okay, I surrender. I will receive. Anyway.
Were you having an extraordinary life?
No. I was thinking.
You were surviving.
I was totally surviving. And
were you suffering?
I had this feeling of, I'm going to do this by golly. And so people around me, I had a mentor in my office at work that took me under his wing. He's my champion for sure in life. And I had visuals of me laying in the mud, basically saying, no, I can't do it. And him pretty much picking me up by the scruff of the neck saying, get up and start running. I mean, figuratively, that's basically what he did over and over, believing in me. And I do believe that with my grit and people believing in me, both professionally and my community, I just took the bull by the horns, and it was basically, darn it, I'm going to do this, whatever it takes. So I had this drive and this grit, and the 3 things that motivated me every day were those 3 kids. So no matter what it took, no matter how tired I was going to do it. And then what happened was people that I respect greatly were calling me their hero. And that was really remarkable to hear, because I felt like it was helpful when I felt like the needy person, because I did not want to be a needy person.
And you chose to pay cash for college expenses, tuition, books, living for 3 kids, yes?
I don't know if I chose to pay cash, Hillary, but I didn't have any savings.
You did. You did pay cash. We can take the verb out if you like, but you did. That happened in the past. You paid out of pocket.
Yes.
For college savings.
Yes.
So it became a life, it went from being a life of I can afford nothing to
I will put my kids
through. You had all this money coming in and it's all going back out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And thankfully their dad helps with college, so that we share that. So that's been a big help.
So dad's making some more money too now.
Yes.
Can you say approximately when you and I met last year, your income in real estate had gone from, let's say, $60,000 the first year to approximately what?
Well, in 2015 was my biggest year, and I think I hit 500. And then the next few years, it went down from there because I didn't really know how to handle that success with feeding my pipeline. I just was drinking out of a fire hose, and I got back to square one. And then the first part of the next year, I had 6 months of no income. So the following year, I made under 300,000. And then the next year, I made somewhere around 3 something.
But the experience was whatever's coming in, it's all going out because you had it costs a lot to pay rent here in the Valley. I think you're paying, if I'm not mistaken, $4,000 for rent. There's college expenses. You are a real estate agent. You lease a car. You need to look good, right? So it's all going out the door.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I pay quarterly taxes, and I had to play some catch up there. And I also have a very, very expensive health insurance premium for the 4 of us, which is $2,000 a month. and car insurance for 4 of us. I have to do private because I am an independent contractor, and also I have a son with a situation that we can't just get any health care. He has to have his providers.
Okay. So I think that we got the world of it. Yes. I'm feeling like I'm in a well and I'm clamoring out and my fingers are bloody. My fingernails are coming off from clawing out with so much intention, but no matter how high I climb, I just can't see the sun. I just can't get out of this hole.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And no real, just baby steps on awareness of how to, do spreadsheets for my accountant and get my taxes all under control, which I was doing better and better every year, but that takes time. And so my control over money and having a plan for money was not happening. And so I was just responding to income and outflow.
Okay. So then what happened?
So I didn't have a lot of trust actually for many people to really decide what I wanted to do about money or how I should understand money. I had an excellent accountant who was an angel in just getting me squared away and helping me get that on track. But I had to take baby steps, and I was not one to just look somebody up and have a financial advisor or somebody that I could go to. I was very fearful about wanting to make sure it was the right person or somebody that I could learn from or do something like that. So it just so happened that our company had a seminar with financial planner speaking and an economist speaking, and you were speaking.
I was speaking.
And I was just listening to your story as you talked to us about your journey with money. And I was sitting there and by myself, and I said, okay, I need to talk to her because I want to learn about how I can understand money. So I decided to be open to learning about how I could take control of my money.
Yeah. And so you did become a part of my 50K Wealth Multiplier experience, the mastermind of 11 women. We launched in January, and it was a combination of mastermind, so group conversation and support, plus we got into the weeds with you and really opened up the kimono and talked about how much debt you have, everyone in the group, debt, expenses, income, and we made a roadmap for those things. So talk about your experience. When you first joined the group, I don't think it's a secret, but I thought we may have a problem because Leslie keeps telling me she has to spend $400,000 a year. So tell me how that was for you. Tell me, because some things really shifted for you.
I don't think I'm a big spender. I don't go on vacations. I don't have a lot of things, but I have high expenses, raising 4 kids and paying college out of my cash flow and big health insurance and car insurance, high rent. So I kind of feel like I'm sort of normal, but yet I have this huge monthly expenses. So I kept trying to navigate with you. I remember this. I remember exactly where I was driving my car about how I could get a little bit out of this program without actually committing to the program. Because there's an investment in ourselves and a time commitment. So I said, do you think I could just meet with you every once in a while? And I remember you said, so you want to get all the results but not do all the work? And I remember like, dang, I'm never going to get out from underneath this accountability with this one. So I felt excited and nervous, but also it was really affirming to me that I had met somebody that was going to help me understand myself with money and how to learn to overcome this cycle. So I went for it.
Great. And so what did you discover? First of all, what was the thought that had you... Because in the beginning of the program, you still had the brakes on, okay? So what shifted that for you?
In one of our very first coaching calls, first of all, we had to be willing to open our accounts and our money to Jen and to really let Hillary and Jen help us to grow in this area. And so there was a lot of vulnerability and trust there. And I realized in some of our very first coaching calls that I had a lot of work to do emotionally with money before I could even get to the practical parts of automation and learning how to have my monthly expenses organized.
Okay.
So that was probably the biggest growth spot for me, was understanding what I needed to work on in that area, understanding my view of money. What I learned through a few questions that you gave me that really made me think and take a hold of this was that I never would have thought of this before, but the motivation for me to make money, because there was so much shame involved with not having it and being in the state that I was with my family, I just was motoring through, and I didn't realize that crisis was my motivator. So I had a couple episodes of 6 months no income, and then I would fight like hell, if you will, till I made ends meet, and I always did. So I was...
And then you got to tell that story and be a hero.
And then I got to tell that story and be a hero, because everybody would always see that I was scrappy and I could get out of it. And dang, look at her. She can do it. Yeah. I couldn't do that if I were in her situation. How does she do that? So the affirmation that I got from how people saw me when I was digging out of crisis soothed my shame. Mm. So it was huge. And I didn't realize how much that became a pattern for me, and that I actually on some deep level did not count myself worthy enough or see myself as that person that could have fun, financial freedom, security, and abundance. I thought I was pretty much destined for crisis and getting through. So Hillary invited me to think about being free. I learned so much about what I needed to speak to release myself from this bondage that I was in with myself about money.
Mm-hmm. You started having very powerful insights. And there were calls, you and I had where, you'd be in tears, but it's not about the tears. It's about, you were saying incredibly powerful things. You were seeing that you had essentially authored this life of crisis. And I got from the tears that you didn't want that anymore. Right. That it wasn't just an insight. Oh yeah, this is happening. And then it's going to continue to happen, because just because you have an insight doesn't mean crap is going to change. But, I invited you to go transform yourself in the circle of conversations that you are in all your relationships. And you did it. So talk a little bit about, what did you actually say? What did you actually say to people, and how did a couple of those conversations go?
Well, one thing you said to me that was poignant and it really changed my thinking was, you said to me, I think you're frenemies this state of crisis. And I said, no, I'm not. I don't want to be here. It's not what I want. And I got defensive inside and with you, because I thought, that's not who I am. And you said, but it kind of is, because you keep doing it. So I really took that to heart, and I really thought about it. And I thought, wow, I am doing that. So how do I not do that anymore? And so when you encouraged me to go talk to the people that I had in my mind put on this pedestal that needed to see me as a struggling hero, release myself from that role. So I started having this self-actualization of, I am a crisis warrior instead of an abundance warrior. And I need to go tell people, and you encouraged me to go talk to the people in my life that are really instrumental in this area, and let them know that I'm going to be a new me. So we called it Leslie 2.0. So I went to my children and to people that I felt needed to hear that I've decided to be the successful me. And everybody, I had men crying. I had people celebrating me. I had reactions I didn't expect at all. But one of my friends just said it so clearly. And he goes, Leslie, do you get it that none of us saw you that way? That's how you saw us seeing you.
Wow.
And I realized the power of that. of how I think somebody sees me was dictating the course of my crisis. And they all were embracing Leslie 2.0. So I decided it took so long and it took all of a sudden at the same time. It's as though I just shifted my thinking and decided I'm going to be Leslie 2.0. And at that time, through our conversations and through my daughter was going through life coaching at the time, so she was sharing some things from that. And I actually got to a point where I told that part of me that was the crisis part, that she could sit down now, that she had done a great job. She got me where I needed to be.
Leslie 1.0.
Leslie 1.0 was very important. She was scrappy. She was determined. She had grit, determination to provide for her kids. But that Leslie has done a great job, and she can sit down now.
She can rest.
She can rest.
She tired.
So I gave her her crown. And then we launched Leslie 2.0.
And one of the conversations I remember you had that you were most concerned about was with one of your daughters. And I think you said you were afraid that they were expecting and needing you to pay for a lot of things. And you said to her something like, I can't pay for my share and your father's share. Like, I can't make up for what he isn't. And I think her reaction surprised you. Do I have that right?
Yes. So I had their dad, by the way, is very involved and very available to them and encouraging of them. So this again was in my head.
Right.
About how I felt that I needed to be everything all the time. And instead of just being me. So she basically released me from that, saying, we don't expect that, Mom. So all those things just are my self-defeating ways of thinking I'm not doing enough or not. I think in the times when things were so grim, my kids had to really fend for themselves a lot. And then when they got older, they told me, thank goodness that you didn't do everything for us, because we know how to pick our own classes. We know how to make dinner. We know how to survive the world. And you didn't spoon feed us. And so the blessing came from that. To me, that was a really great thing when I thought I wasn't enough. But it still haunts me sometimes that I'm not enough, but I'm growing. It's still a process.
And was it about that time when your pipeline started to fill? Because you started showing up for calls and conversations and saying, something's mushrooming here. Something's blowing open.
Something happened. Well, I think when I started really intrinsically knowing what my value is, really believing it inside, something shifted. So not only was I able to communicate to my clients what I believe I'm worth and what my value to them is confidently, but it seemed as though situations, opportunities to have listings, opportunity to represent buyers, successful transactions, going into contract, winning multiple offers, negotiating higher prices, it just started coming and happening. And I almost had a experience where I was watching this happen to myself.
Really?
Yeah. It was just, I couldn't believe it. But on the other hand, I was really aware that something had shifted monumentally inside.
So we could say something shifted in your experience of yourself, in your willingness to use certain language around money. Something shifted in your handling of money too, because we were digging into your cash flow. And, you might call it organization of debts and expenses and income, but really it was, we were putting in financial integrity.
Yes.
And as soon as that dovetailed with your Leslie 2.0, because I'm not going to be in financial crisis anymore, then the money really started to come.
It did. And I really believe that I just felt like it could be mine too. I really think that something happens when it's almost like somebody unplugged a dam. It's as though it was all there for me, but I was stopping up the dam by my view and my belief in myself.
Yes.
Or my feeding the wrong warrior. What happened is I believe a lot of what was happening or what I had the potential to become financially was already happening, but I was plugging it up. And as soon as I removed that block, it started flowing.
Yes.
And that sounds crazy, but it is so true.
And you and I were saying in the pre-chat how even saying something that woo-woo is a little uncomfortable for both of us.
Yeah.
But we both had that experience of it's like money is a flow.
Yeah.
And it's already flowing around you. And all you have to do is tap into what's flowing. And once you do that, it's clear that you can actually close that tap, that it's possible to close it up, to shrink it, to walk away from it. Neither of us want to do that now. But that it's definitely an energetic experience.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm not very woo-woo either, but it happens. So, and there were times you would come to calls just overwhelmed, like present to miracles. It was Leslie 2.0 plus gratitude manifested, right?
Yeah.
And you were completely moved. So just give me, were there any surprises about financial automation or anything else that you learned that really surprised you along the way? Something you wouldn't have expected?
Yes. It's one of those things we hear and we just go, yeah, I'll do that later. I know that probably works. It's fine. It's just a couple of days of getting this set. But when you actually have a plan in place, everything changes. When you set goals and write them down and figure out what you're going to do every day and every week to execute and make that goal happen 2 months from now, a year from now, it happens in a different way. So with automation, it was revolutionary for me to know that all my fixed expenses would come out of one account, that I would have savings for when everything went bad, when I have a tax account where I save money for taxes so that when that quarterly tax bill comes, I just pay it. It's still hard to part with it, but the money's there. That's huge, rather than borrowing from myself to pay the government. And then one of the most freeing things for me with money and thinking it's not okay for me to have fun and it's not okay for me to spend money on a vacation or, I'll buy some clothes, which I need for work. And I think, uh-oh, what did I just do? But to have a today's fun account where everything that doesn't have a fixed amount per month, that I would pay myself that amount every month and I get to spend it however I want. So if I want to buy 2 blouses and have less groceries, I get to do that. Or if I want to take, whatever it is, I had some freedom to just live and make choices instead of trying to figure out where on the budget sheet it was supposed to fit.
Where can I take it from?
To then put it in. And that one account alone made me feel empowered because I didn't feel like a naughty girl that had to tell everybody what I was doing, but I got to choose where I was going to spend my money and feel good about it.
Yeah.
And that was really revolutionary because the whole budget thing just was never attainable to me. And so
budgets are awful.
Yeah. So I thought that was the most practical thing. And also to have in place 6 months of how I would live if something went bad. But I feel more like with what's happening in my shift that more things are going good.
Yeah.
Because I'm prepared for the bad.
And what do you think you're on track? We talked a little bit about your income numbers just before we started recording. So share, what have you already produced this year? What do you think you're on track to produce? And tell us about your new goals.
Well, I have produced almost $600,000 this year, which is a huge change for me.
It's the last week of June 2018 as we record this. So,
Yeah.
So that's $600,000 in 6.5 months.
Yeah.
6.75 months.
Yeah. One of the things that I also really learned in this process was you really helped me uncover and see that not only was I motivated by crisis, but I also subconsciously would take my foot off the gas for no reason. I run with women, groups of women. I have running partner a couple days a week and then a group of women that I run on another day. And if I'm not running with the girls, I will be running and then all of a sudden I'll be walking and I'm not really sure how I started walking. But if I don't have that accountability there next to me, I just start walking. And the same thing was happening in my career where for some reason I had some money in the bank and subconsciously I took my foot off the gas until I was in crisis again. And then I had enough motivation to get cracking. So I learned that I need to do things every day, every week to keep my pipeline full. So painful as it was to start thinking about, and I'm still in the process and still behind on my homework, I have to come up with what I'm going to do this week to make the fall happen or to make November happen. And I have to make it happen today.
And you're learning how to meter your effort and energy so that it's consistent, so that your prospecting is consistent, how to ignore the voice that says, oh, you can sit on the couch today when you wake up and you're not in crisis right now, right? Mm-hmm, because that's the little voice that has you return to Leslie 1.0. And so if you did nothing about the gas pedal, what do you think you would make this year?
I'd stop. I mean, I probably would go, wow, I had my best year. And it's not like I sit...
Oh, you would sit on the couch for the rest of the day.
Well, it's not that I sit on the couch. I somehow work every day, but not effectively.
You make noise.
Yeah, not effectively. And I'm learning how to work effectively and how to make those hard calls, how to reach out, how to stay in touch, how to prospect. And it's really fun.
Yeah.
Because I'm connecting with people, I'm leveraging other situations and conversations, and it's actually really rewarding. And it's a genuine win-win. It's not just me going hunting.
And I think you said you have another couple listings that you'll likely list this year. So maybe you would finish at 800,000 and then, but you said, F it. I'm just going to say it on Profit Boss Radio. F it. Why stop? Let's make $1 million.
I mean, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
And then I could figure out other things about my future. But it's exciting to have the choice. And I feel like we all can have the choice. If I can come up from where I came from, I believe anybody can that has a heart to do it. But it takes work. It takes being vulnerable. It takes being transparent. It takes being coachable. And it takes the willingness to really face yourself and not hide behind the fighter and the hero, but really being willing to do what I need to do to make a change. I believe in women, and I believe in educating ourselves to understand everything about money, everything about what we need to understand about taxes or running a household or figuring out how to live within our means. And I just feel passionate about really getting that and to keep being a student of that so that I can be encouraging to people that might be discouraged, or my kids. I want my kids to really be smart with money. And so I just want to be an example by what I choose to do.
I just don't see why I would say anything after that. Was so amazing. Oh my God, that is incredible. Is there anything I haven't asked you about or anything you wanted to make sure to get in today? Because that was just a beautiful way to end. Today's episode of Profit Boss Radio was brought to you by Ignite Investing. If it's time to release all that financial anxiety and make sure you're on the right path to financial success by hiring a comprehensive wealth management team, and you have between $25,000 and $499,000 to invest, go to igniteinvesting.com now and click Get Started today. For today's show notes, visit hillaryhendershot.com. And if you love Profit Boss Radio, please share the show with your friends and, of course, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Until next time, I wish you much prosperity.